I am pleased today to introduce our speaker, Judy Johnson from the Maple Grove Rotary Club. And even though she is with the Maple Grove folks up there, she has Bloomington roots, I found out. Her uncle is Arnie Johnson. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that name, Arnie Johnson started the BAA here in Bloomington. And he also started Jocks Reborn? Born Again Jocks. That's right, Born Again Jocks. So she has some significant roots here. So, but Judy, shortly after her daughter left for college a few years ago, she was looking for some additional volunteer activity with an opportunity to meet others, and lo and behold, she found Rotary. She has been a Rotarian for 5 years, and last year she served as her club's 25th president. I'd say she jumped in with both feet on that one. But in 2014, Judy had the opportunity to go to Sydney, Australia for the Rotary International Conference. And at that time, she was president-elect of her club. And at the conference, there were over 100 projects represented. And the Days for Girls booth was one of the ones that tugged at her heart. And she decided that she could do this. And she brought the idea back to her club. And under her passionate leadership, Maple Grove Rotary has been instrumental in making and distributing over 435 feminine hygiene kits and providing education to school-age girls in Bangladesh, Kenya, Guatemala, Gambia, and India. And last year, their project received the International Award from our district. So we've asked her today to talk about the project and the district's efforts to create more kits. And on our end, we've been involved in discussions with both Abul and Sanjaya to see how these kits might be useful to the girls they are working with in India. They both took back several of the kits, and you'll be seeing these today, with them to India, and I've had a little bit of conversation with them as we've been kind of trying to do the email back and forth. Okay, so with that, Judy Johnson.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. I was here 10 minutes, and I met the chief, and my father was chief of police in Minneapolis, and I met this Mason here, and my parents were Masonic, and I was a Joby, and I too went to Southwest. Yay, cheers Southwest on to victory, right? So anyways, I brought back from Sydney, Australia, the Days for Girls project. This happens to be the PowerPoint deck that I used at the conference last fall. And you know, of course, they have the big polio thing, right? At every conference. And so I got to run it, which was pretty lame because the flight got in so late, I was so exhausted. My run lasted about 30 seconds, and I was at the finish line. So it was pretty fun. But I went with my identical twin sister, which was great, and we celebrated a really big birthday in Sydney, Australia. Actually, we went up north and we went scuba diving at the Great Barrier Reef, because if you're there, you might as well, you know, go to the Great Barrier Reef, right? So one of the fun things that when you go to these conferences is they got booths everywhere to learn about everything, anything you wanted. And the button man is a famous guy. He's been at all the conferences, and he's got like 50 pounds worth of hardware on him. So everyone takes a picture with the button man. All right, so anyways, I found the Days for Girls booth with my twin. Actually, she's a quilter, so anything that does, you know, has to do with sewing, she loves. I knit, but she sews. And we found this booth, and what they were doing was, they make kits and they deliver them to girls in remote corners of the world that don't have access to feminine hygiene kits. And we were amazed by it. And the Aussie women had the booth there, and they were Rotarians. And this one woman told us about, she was this tall blonde woman, and she went to a school in Kenya and talked to the girls, and through a translator, and she's like, you know, it talks about the egg and the tubes, and then all of a sudden hers started when she was 12, and the whole place just went apart. And she's like, okay, I know this is taboo, but what did I say that was so bad? Why did I get such a reaction from these girls? And the translator said, because they didn't know what bleeding was about and thought it was due to being poor and black. You know, it was a curse because they were poor and black, and they did not realize that every woman in the world goes through this. And it doesn't matter if you're two-legged or four-legged. Every female goes through it. It's the way life is. So that was such an eye-opener to me, like, really? They didn't know what that was about? To me, that just felt like there was a lot of education that needs to go on. So anyways, it was started in Sydney, or in Seattle. It was a woman who was doing sustainable projects in Kenya also, and she was like building stoves and showing people how to make stoves. And she woke up at 2 in the morning one day. She had like 2 months before she was going on her trip. She woke up in the mornings going, hey, I wonder what girls do about their periods. So she sent an email off to her contact, and she got a reply within 2 minutes. One word, nothing. How can you do nothing? You can't do nothing. You have to do something. And she sent an email back saying, I don't understand. And they said, and it was a dormitory type school. And what these girls were doing was they were sitting on cardboard for a week each month in the dorm, and maybe somebody would come with food. Maybe someone would tell them what they missed for school. What a loss. What a huge loss. So what she did is she got her friends together. Within 2 months, they came up with 500 kits, and they went with her there. And I mean, it was remarkable, and that was the beginning. And now they're like in about 80 countries in the world, and there's people like me who is just getting people together to sew, and then other people to distribute. And why this is such a fabulous thing for Rotary is because Rotary goes everywhere. They go to the most remote corners of the world, and they're focused on education. They're focused on helping people. They care. That's why this is such a fabulous project for Rotary. And they teach people, and they are agents for social equality. And what that means is, okay, if you start having your period when you're in 5th grade and you don't have a way to manage it, that means you drop out of school. Okay, if you drop out of school, that means you're eligible for marriage. And that means the babies come when you're 10, 12 years old. And this whole cycle of illiteracy and inequality and everything continues on and on and on, as it has for thousands of years. So if you help a girl manage her cycle, maybe the cycle of poverty and illiteracy will be eradicated from her family, because she's getting more education, she'll get training, she'll be able to earn money, she'll be able to take care of her family. So that's what the agent of being an agent for social equality means. So then we talked about some of the taboos in the U.S. and the developing countries. I mean, we're all well educated. We know what it's all about. We've had all the education in school. We got the booklets from Kotex and everything else. We know what's happening, but we still don't talk to each other about it. And I have an identical twin sister, right? We never talked about it. We started talking about it when it was over. It's like, really? Why is that? It's not that there was shame involved, but maybe there was shame. It was just something we never talked about. But then again, my brother and all his buddies, you know, they're doing fart jokes and they're doing pissing contests and stuff. But we never talked about periods. It's like, I don't understand this, but it was the way it was, right? You know, it's kind of crazy. And so in the U.S. and in developed countries, we don't talk about it either, right? And we call it ANFLO, and we call it all those other, you know, acronyms or names for it. And in sewathons, I've been called ANFLO several times. I think it's pretty funny, but that's all right. And for me to be even talking about this subject is unbelievable. So I'm very grateful for Toastmasters to give me a little confidence to do this, because it's a difficult one. But in other countries, it's even worse. I mean, these girls are getting circumcised in a lot of areas, and that's all that tissue is being cut away with a rusty knife or a piece of glass or something horrible. And then they get sewn up, and if they don't die of infection and other things, then when they get married, their husband has the pleasure of cutting her open with a knife. Blows me away. It's like, oh my God. And then they, you know, a child bride, they're not developed enough to have babies yet. You know, the pelvis area isn't wide enough. So frequently the babies, they have difficult deliveries and the tissue dies, and then all of a sudden they're totally always urinating because the skin has dye between the uterus and the bladder, and that's called a fistula. I've never heard of that before, but it's a horrible thing. And, you know, they're just outcasts. During that week, you know, they go to another place. They can't prepare meals. They can't go to temple. They can't have a usual life. And I find that terrible. I just find it unbelievable. Because even though, you know, here in the U.S., someone's got their period, they tend to be crabby, they have zits, you know, they feel miserable. But life still goes on. You still go to school, you still study, you go see your friends, you still go to the flicks, you know, you have no restriction on what you do. You just feel like crud, you know, but that's it. So, this is, I already talked about they just sit on cardboard, or they use anything available. Can you imagine putting corn husks and that, reeds and stuff like that, or rocks in there to try to stop it? Newspaper, garbage. It's horrible. Infection, unbelievable. This woman in Seattle that found, you know, that started this, she found some schools where the head schoolmaster was exchanging sex for Kotex. And to me, that's a crime against humanity. Should never have to, that should never be. So, you know, this is what's going on in a lot of other countries. There's 600 million girls. That's a lot of girls that need some help, right? And uneducated, it's mostly girls for the same reason that they drop out when they get their periods. And in a lot of these countries, it's the girls that take care of the families. The men are not involved in the children. So if she's not educated, how is she going to be able to provide a roof over their head and education for their kids and decent food and shoes and all those things? It's terrible. So, here's where I'm talking about, you know, they get greater earning power, and the more money they make, the more respect they get. There's a whole lot of correlation between money and respect. So let's give her some more respect. And she's able to take care of her family and able to break the cycle of poverty. And she has more control over her life. If you don't understand why you're bleeding, how can you have any control over your body? You know? That's just unbelievable. And to me, I feel that so many of these countries is being run by the Taliban, and, you know, those horrible guys that want women to go back to the, you know, first century because they don't want these girls in school, but we do. So to me, that seems like a way to fight the Taliban in a real strange way, but it is. You know, keep those girls in school, get them educated. There's millions of Malalas out there, right? We just got to help them, that's all. And, you know, the disposable issue is in these countries, they don't have Randy's Sanitation coming every Monday to pick up your garbage. So what do you do with it? If you can even afford it, even if it's available. If it's so cost prohibitive, a farmer, or they're not going to spend money for that if they need to buy food instead. And there's no way to get rid of it. They found out that they were throwing the disposables in the pit toilets, and that's causing a lot of issues and horrible things. So disposable is not the way to do it. So what Days for Girls does is make, here, we've got a couple kits here. They're washable flannel kits. And if they're taken care of, they can be used for 3 years. So I'll show you what it looks like here. So this is why I need people to help me sew. So there's these shields that we make out of 100% cotton. And there's a diaper liner in it so it won't leak, and this just wraps around a panty. And then they have, these are the maxi pads themselves. They're just flannel and they're folded in tries, which makes it very absorbent. And they can stack several on top depending on, you know, their need. And they're given 2 of these shields and 8 of these, which is good enough for 2 days. So if they wash them, they'll be set for the whole time. And washing, in many of these areas, water is a huge issue. So they're given 2 Ziplocs, one for clean and one for dirty. And they can put the dirty one in here and put a little bit of water, go like this, pour out the red water, pour in some more like this, and pour it out. And if they hang it up like on a roof or something so the sun gets to it, that becomes antibacterial. So they're good and ready for the next time. And so this can be It can keep a girl in school for 3 more years, which will change their life. You know, it gives them confidence, and it's just a huge, huge thing. And they're also given some panties and a washcloth and a little bar of soap and directions in pictures on how to take care of their kids and stuff. So that's why we need help in making these kits. We also need help in distributing them. So if you guys are going someplace, you're welcome to bring kits. We only ask that you talk to the girls about what the periods are about, because if they don't know, it's not going to help. So then it's like, how does Days for Girls and Rotary line up? And it's because of disease prevention. Absolutely, it helps with disease. And water and sanitation, all those basic things that Rotary deals with, this covers all of them. And in Bangladesh, with Steve Label from Brooklyn Park Rotary, they're setting up a sewing center. And so is Ann Dillard from North Minneapolis. She's going to Senegal in 2 weeks. She'll be bringing kids with her. And she's going to Senegal and the Gambia, and they're right next to each other. And she has started up sewing centers there and education there. Ann Dillard is fabulous, and she said she would be a resource for us if we don't know how to do this. She'd be happy to help. And also, you know, if we get sewing centers started there, they're making money. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing, especially in Bangladesh where the women can't work outside their houses, but they certainly can work inside sewing. So the disease prevention, of course, is, you know, they have a way to manage your periods, and they're not putting horrible things like newspaper in there. And let's see, yeah, exchange. This just bothers me so much, I'm sorry. And the water and sanitation, it doesn't require a lot of water, which is very positive. And then we don't have the issue with disposables and getting rid of them. And the maternal and child health, like I said, that if a girl isn't mature enough, or if her pelvis hasn't expanded enough, she's not going to be able to deliver a baby very well, and it's going to either destroy her or the child. So that helps with that. And of course, the longer she's in school, the longer she delays getting married, so that's really important. And education, of course, is really, really important, of course. And she has the opportunity to break the chain of poverty, which I absolutely believe in. Let's see, what's this? Set up sewing centers, we already talked about that, and peace. Okay, I gotta tell you, this might be coming from a very, not a really good point of view, but you know, men have ruled the world long enough and we still have wars and we can't solve them. Maybe if we get more women educated, they can help solve wars. Maybe I don't know, but what we're doing now isn't working, guys. That's how I feel about it. So maybe if we get them educated and they can understand that they've got brains and they can solve their own issues. I don't think the Americans going over to some remote country and showing them how to do things is the right thing, because we don't understand the culture, we don't understand the way they do business. But if these women can get educated, they understand their problems, they can solve their own problems. Of course they can. And solving problems is all about peace, isn't it? War is the absence of problem solving. It's just a power thing. So are there any questions for me? Yes, Karen?
Are there directions in these individual packets for the people in the different languages, or has that been thought about?
They're little pictures.
Okay. Oh, pictures worth a thousand.
It is. And I bet you can't see this, because I can barely see it, but it's a picture of how to do it, so. Yes, sir?
So one of the things I was wondering about was around, we have dirty water in a place. How do you kind of handle that when you're trying to clean the product?
Right, and it's not going to get as clean as it was initially.
Right, yeah.
But the sun is antibacterial.
So even if you have dirty water,
Yep.
something that will...
Yeah, and they can use gray water like after dishes to wash it, and then if they hang it out in the sun will take care of it.
Is there a website for this program?
Yeah, it's,
Being a nurse,
Yeah.
I always told her that. That's how they got rid of it.
Another question, are you familiar with the standard in company called Norwex?
Yes.
You know, they have the copper fibers, isn't it copper, silver fibers in their fabric, which is antibacterial. I wonder if there would be any way to get something like that to donate some product.
I have no idea. That would be incredible. That would be incredible. I think there are a lot of solutions. We just have to get started. That's all. Yes.
That's a gunny talk, Judy. Thanks for doing it.
It is. We don't talk about this stuff. We don't. Like I said, thank you Toastmasters, and thank you Rotary for enabling me a way to take care of this thing that really bothers me. You know, we have a way to make them, we have some resources to buy fabric, and we have a way to distribute them, and that's all due to Rotary. And in fact, what we're trying to do for the district conference is make 450 of these kits for the district conference. I have 200 of them are already taken, or will be taken in the next 2 weeks, 100 of them to Bangladesh. Ann Dillard is taking 50 of them to Senegal, and I believe it's the Orno Club is taking them, I think it's to Haiti. But I still have 200 components in my basement ready to be made or ready to be assembled into kits, and I've got about 6 sew-a-thons already set up through March. So I'm very busy making this. We will definitely make that target, but you guys are welcome to come during the, at the conference. We will be assembling them, we'll be making them. It's a human issue. It's not just a woman's issue. It's a human issue, so all humans need to come together to help assemble these, right? You know, I think we can all profit from people getting smarter and things like that and taking care of their families. It's a huge issue. Any other questions? Yes?
Somewhat related, the female genital mutilation. In some cases, I've heard that that's almost on an increase, do you know? And it's primarily Africa, I believe.
Right, it is.
Do you know if that as an incidence is up, down?
No. Except I do have, on another slide deck that I got from Days from Girls, there's a picture of these 6 women, and they are the cutters. And that's how they make their money, is taking children and cutting all the skin off and sewing them up. And what Days for Girls did, the Celeste Mergens, she taught them how to sew. And they make more money sewing kits now than mutilating children. And so it's all about education, right?
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely, Karen. So I would just encourage people, if you can come on the 14th, tell your spouse about it, friends. And what we'll be doing on the 14th is sewing components of the kits. So we won't be actually assembling the kits together, but we'll be sewing components so that at the district conference we can put them together as kits. And like I said, we're having discussions with Abul and Sanjay, but you know, there's lots of issues around this, as Judy so eloquently presented, in terms of just the taboo issues, and you know, because they don't even want to talk about blood, they don't want to see blood. When you know, it's sensitive in terms of even where they would hang these things up to dry, even though they're very colorful, so that they don't actually, you know, if you hung them up to dry, you wouldn't actually know what they were. So they're kind of disguised in a way. They just look like pieces of material as you hang them up. So there's been a lot of thinking in terms of how to put this together so it will work. But there are lots of people in the world working on this issue. You know, like UNICEF, and people have done research to see what works in a country. But I think there's some unique challenges in India just because of the water shortages and the taboo issues. So those are the things that we're talking about.
Will we be cutting that night too?
Yes, there'll be some cutting, yes.
Okay, and then sewing.
Yep, and ironing and stringing bags and
Okay. So
sitting there talking smart.
How many people generally show up to this?
I have had between 20 and 80 at a sew-a-thon. 80 was pretty unmanageable. But there'll be a big one in Maple Grove on Thursday. You're all welcome at the Government Center, and there'll be at least 50 people there. We got this big article published in the Osceola Maple Grove Press last week, all about it. If you guys want to publish something in the Bloomington Press, I'll give you the interview questions that I filled out for this, and some pictures. If you want to bring it to your community, you can. If you guys have got church groups that you want, to have it at another church too, I'd be happy to work with anyone. It doesn't matter. I brought this to homeless shelter. We've sold there. Employee basement. We've sold there. Someone wants me to come to their house. The churches are the usual ones because they got nice big spaces and a lot of electrical. But I'll go anywhere. I just think it's such an important message.
It's an important message, and it's actually a great project because at the end of the night, you can kind of see what you made. You got that product there. So it's really fun in that respect. And Mary has actually started our PR efforts and put the word out to the Area 3 clubs, because even though it's in Bloomington, we actually see this as a club-sponsored event that is really open to other Rotary clubs. And we actually have interest already from the South Metro Minneapolis Club.
I've always called it South Minneapolis Metro Evenings Club. Which is the young, they're a very young group. Their average age is about 30. But all of the Area 3 clubs have been supporting Abul and Sanja's projects. And so that relationship has really caused a, interest and encouraging the different clubs to be involved. So again, it's a great project for us to help support girls around the world and really people around the world. So with that, thank you so much, Judy. And in appreciation of your speaking presentation today, a donation to End Polio Now will be made in your name, which, as you know, End Polio Now is the signature project of Rotary International. In the early 1980s, there were about 400,000 cases of polio a year, and Rotary decided to join with other organizations to lead the eradication of polio. We are so close to eradicating this devastating disease. We've had no cases in 2016. At this time last year, we had one case. The last case in the world was on December 22nd, 2015. So success over polio will help fuel the energy for what people of the world can do when we work together. So with that, we have a certificate in appreciation. And you probably already have one. I have. Here's another. And polio now. Thank you so much. Thank you.